statement saying errors in judgment mean that she cannot continue her service as a member of Congress.
It's sad she has to play the victim. That kind of wrecks it. Trace, great to see you tonight. Thanks so much. Hannity's right now. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, Tucker, thank you. Welcome. Busy Hannity tonight, and we start with amazing, great, good news. Wow, great for the news business. The cold-blooded, the evil, the mass-murdering terrorist known as Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is now dead. This radical ISIS chief blew himself up after a top-secret raid by our elite U.S. Special Forces who breached his compound by force, and they chased the cowardly terrorist into a corridor with a dead end. President Trump watched the operation play out in real time on a live stream, and on Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, he described Baghdadi's pathetic final moments. Take a look.
The thug who tried so hard to intimidate others spent his last moments in utter fear, in total panic and dread, terrified of the American forces bearing down on him. A brutal killer, one who has caused so much hardship and death, has violently been eliminated. He will never again harm another innocent man, woman, or child. He died like a dog. He died like a coward. The world is now a much safer place.
Now, 2 U.S. Special Forces members suffered minor injuries during the raid, along with one service dog who chased down Baghdadi. But tonight, thankfully, all are safe, all are sound, all have returned to duty. And meanwhile, another top-secret raid by U.S. Special Forces just hours later took out ISIS chief spokesman and potential successor. For more on these incredibly successful operations, our own Catherine Herridge in Washington tonight. Catherine.
Sean, tonight intelligence officials are combing through records seized during the raid, what military and intelligence officers call document exploitation. Delta Force soldiers also took 2 Islamic State fighters prisoner, and they are reportedly under interrogation in Iraq. And we're learning new details about Baghdadi's final minutes, how he fled with 3 of his children as Delta Force operators closed in. Cornered in a dead-end tunnel, Baghdadi detonated a suicide vest. And as you mentioned today, President Trump said the most wanted terrorist and ISIS leader, quote, died like a dog and died like a coward. With multiple streams of intelligence used to develop and execute the operation, a Kurdish commander told Fox's Benjamin Hall that one of their informants was inside the compound, providing key information about the tunnels, and that Baghdadi was on the move, apparently after months in the same location, which is not typical. High-value terrorists are known to change locations, often sleeping in a different safe house each night. U.S. forces were able to bring the Kurdish informant to safety. On Twitter, the president released a declassified picture of the, quote, wonderful dog that did such a great job capturing and killing the ISIS leader. Injured in the chase and explosion, the dog who helped secure his military team's success is expected to fully recover. On the intelligence picture and new leads, CIA, Pentagon, and other agencies are doing a preliminary assessment on the Baghdadi records. Officials believe they will likely show Baghdadi no longer ran the terror group's day-to-day operations, but there may be new insights into recruitment and the leadership structure, Sean.
All right, Catherine Herridge in Washington tonight. Thank you. Baghdadi was evil personified, a mass murderer, serial rapist, brutal con man. He led the most barbaric terrorist organization on earth. He directed a genocide against Yazidis and Christians while forcing Yazidi women and children to become sex slaves. He ordered his enemies burned alive in cages. You might remember this scene, heads chopped off. He also ordered and inspired terrorist attacks all over the globe. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives because of ISIS and Baghdadi. But this is how the Washington Post chose to remember him in an obituary entitled Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, austere religious scholar at the helm of Islamic State, dies at 48. Austere religious scholar died at 48? Jeff Bezos, your newspaper? Let me educate your oblivious, deranged newspaper. Baghdadi was no scholar. He was a radical Islamic extremist, an evil SOB. He got cornered by members of the toughest, greatest military heroes on the face of this earth, and then blew himself up like the coward he is. And Baghdadi is, I'm pretty certain, rotting in hell as we speak. And Saturday's successful operation was named after 26-year-old Kayla Mueller. Now, Kayla was a humanitarian worker, you may remember, kidnapped by ISIS in 2013 after leaving a Doctors Without Borders facility in Syria. She was killed in captivity in 2015, but not before being raped repeatedly by al-Baghdadi. And Kayla was one of many Americans killed by ISIS. A young aid worker named Peter Kasig, he was also kidnapped and murdered by ISIS. Remember 2014, journalist James Foley, beheaded by this evil terror group. And that same year, another American journalist named Steven Sotlov, beheaded. And let's not forget American soldiers and civilians that have been killed by ISIS terror attacks all over the world. And thanks to President Trump and, of course, our brave men and women in the U.S. military. And you know how I always separate the 1% of those that abuse the powerful tools of intelligence versus the 99% of the brave patriots in our intelligence community? They deserve a lot of credit tonight. Thanks to all of you. The caliphate has been defeated. It has been destroyed in Syria. The trail of ISIS devastation and horror is shocking. They turned many once great cities into rubble. Hundreds of thousands are dead as a result. Millions displaced. The world will never be the same. For the Washington Post, Jeff Bezos' newspaper, to ever refer to this terrorist scum as an austere religious scholar, it is sick, ugly, twisted, and exactly why America will never trust these corrupt mainstream media fake news outlets ever again. It's not just the Washington Post either, because instead of celebrating the death of the world's most wanted terrorists, many in the corrupt media mob, of course, they used this weekend's operation. Let's attack Donald Trump over this, too. Take a look.
The raid that killed al-Baghdadi is both a military and political victory for the Trump administration. But some officials point out that it may say as much about the flaws in Trump's foreign policy as it does about how well it can work.
He sounded not like a president of the United States. He actually sounded like Saddam Hussein after torturing people, sounded like Muammar Gaddafi after he would torture people.
There's a long trail ahead of him actually finally releasing details, explicit details, some of which sort of echoed, and frankly, the crudeness you would often expect to hear maybe from ISIS about the whimpering, screaming Baghdadi.
I think from a standpoint of symbolism and importance of the country, taking down Osama bin Laden had a lot more meaning than this.
Can we at least agree that the world is a better place without this guy in it? Who, Trump or the Baghdadi?
As I've